Ladies and gentlemen, the American Jury and Bulldog Nation, welcome to another episode of Eric Deters, the Law. And today, we're going to cover a subject matter, divorce and domestic relations, which is nasty. And I want to begin this by saying, remember, I'm a retired lawyer. But if you have some type of these incidents that you need some advice on, if you text me or email me, I'll hook you up with a lawyer in your neck of the woods that can help you, that I trust. But I want to begin with this statement about this. Folks, I am 60 years old now. I've never gone through a divorce. I've represented people when I was a lawyer. I represented people that had gone through divorces and domestic relations. I have witnessed this as a friend. I've witnessed it as a family member. I've witnessed this as an attorney. And I cannot give you any better counsel in this educational video than this. If possible, work it out. There is no better solution than two rational people resolving these issues amicably. Now, I respect it takes two. Unfortunately, for so many of you, you have irrational person on the other side. You've got that person who just wants to make your life miserable, not agree to anything. And that's sad, and that's unfortunate. There isn't a judge or a domestic relations attorney in this country that wouldn't tell you what I just told you, if you can work it out. Now, here's the other thing that I have found, especially you men. Sorry, I'm going to pick on you a little bit. You men get so caught up on winning, okay? Your wife cheated on you. Your wife did something, all that. By the way, nothing like a scorned woman either. That you want to, quote unquote, win. I can tell you this. I've given this counsel all the time. And by the way, folks, I've been married twice. First wife, God bless her, passed away. I'm still married to my second wife, and I think we're going to make it because we choose to make it. Folks, I just saw where Max Lucado, the great Christian writer, who I really love his stuff, said one of the things that drives him the most nuts is the people that act like their life is perfect. Because no life is perfect. Come on, man. This is funny. I recently made a comment about a young couple that my wife and I know. And I said, boy, they just seem always just so chilled out. And she said, yeah, but I have somebody who told me that, man, they have some knockdown, drag down. I said, well, that's nice to know. You see, from the outside, I saw these people like, man, they probably never know. So come on. If you're married, you know it's hard. It's hard. It's give and take. I don't know anybody that's been married that I guess there's some exceptions that your marriage is really perfect, where divorce wasn't contemplated by one or both parties. Now, to my credit, to me, when I faced those questions, I was ready, willing, and able in exchange for peace and harmony. And by the way, this will always be my position, to give a little more than I have to for that peace and harmony. In other words, I've never said, okay, we're going to split things in the middle. I've always been like, well, let's split things in the middle, but I'll give you a little bit more for the peace and the harmony. By the way, both my spouses were willing to do that if it came to that. It never came to that. But I'm sharing that with you. Both my spouses were cool with that. I mean, come on. Who wants... And I know some lawyers that have gone through divorces, and the stories I hear from the lawyer on the other side, I mean, unfreaking believable. I had this one great story where a woman called a divorce lawyer, then called him back to cancel, but because the person was high profile that she was divorcing, the lawyer was pissed off that she canceled. Said, well, good luck. I hope it works out. In other words, that lawyer was just interested in money and finding out the scoop about their personal lives. I mean, that's what. So if you can work it out, folks, work it out. And if you got to give a little bit more for peace of mind, give up a little bit more for peace of mind. It's not worth it. You don't want a divorce that goes on forever and ever, and you can't move past. I've found this out. Here's some good. I'm sorry I'm not getting into the law of this yet, but this is important. Is if you, and I've noticed about this, some 6 months, some year, most people, I mean, some people are just heartbroken. They never recover. But most people, 6 months to a year, you're back into some kind of groove and you can be happy again. Because guess what? I'm one of these people that believe that there's more than one person that can make you a good spouse. It's that simple. There's all kinds of people that can they're different. I was married twice, totally different women. Totally different women. Both good wives. Different. There's not one person. And you'd be lying if you didn't think about, if you're married, that's the only thing you're not thinking about. Well, if I had to get married again, I'd like somebody that this, that, and the other thing. You know, this is how I do it a little different. And as we all know, you cannot find everything in one person. So another piece of advice that I got, unless you're dealing with somebody that just, you look at them and you can't stand to look at them. Or two, they beat the hell out of you. You got domestic abuse going on. Stick it out, man. Hey, the grass is not always greener. I'm just telling you. All right. So let's talk about these things. First, separation. People get asked, oh, you want a legal separation? The law doesn't recognize a legal separation and like really, but here's how you do a legal separation. You separate, you draw up an agreement, and you abide by it. You don't have to go to court to get a legal separation. A legal separation is just something that you do. You do not need to go to court to get a legal separation. You just separate, draw up an agreement on what your terms are going to be. You don't need to go to court. Not a bad thing. You have to be separated a certain period of time before you get divorced. And you ready for this, Josh? You know what the separation means? Not whether you lived in the same house, not whether you lived apart. It's when you last boinked.
Oh, no way.
They determine separation of when you last boinked. So to get divorced, you have to be separated a certain period of time. And that means when you last boinked. I think in Kentucky, it's 90 days. Each state's different. But filing a divorce, you file a petition, and in Kentucky, it's called a dissolution, a petition for dissolving of your divorce. Now, it is no fault. Now, it used to be back in the day, this was awful. It used to be you had to have fault. So if you wanted to divorce your spouse, like Sabrina, me, Josh, whatever, one of us get divorced, you have to make up something about your spouse. And they would say cruelty. We have no fault divorce for a very good reason. If two people, one of those people does not want to stay in the marriage, they ought to be allowed to get the hell out. Good reason, bad reason, no reason. So we have no fault divorce. You don't need a reason to get divorced. You get divorced. All right? You file that petition. The next step in that process is you work out a separation agreement. You file the separation agreement, if you can work it out, and then you go to court, you have a hearing, the judge validates the separation agreement, you raise your right hand, make sure that you're married, make sure you want to get divorced, and then he issues a decree of dissolution. So it's complaint, petition for dissolution, agreement, decree. It's over. That's what happens if you do it peacefully. If you don't do it peacefully, petition is filed. You have, we're going to get into some of these issues. Then you have motions to file. Who's going to have custody? Who's going to have this? Blah, 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 blah. And it gets insane. And then if you don't work out the agreement, then you have a trial. Judge decides everything. That's the other reason why you want to work it out. If you don't work it out, that judge will decide it. And by the way, who you get as a judge matters. It's famous. Judge Bramlage out there in Boone County was famous. She hated women. She was this working woman, so she hated when women came in there crying about anything. She was a pro-man domestic relations judge, plain and simple. Who your lawyer is might make a difference with the judge. There are so many factors. That's why you want to work it out. Now, let's cover some of the big issues, and I left some off, Josh, but we can add them here. First off, alimony and maintenance, okay? That is what you can pay your spouse. Now, This is by statute. It's not automatic. How much it is depends upon lots of issues. The biggest issue is how long you're married. Also, does the spouse who wants the maintenance and the alimony, are they financially needy of it? Or do they have enough assets? Do they make enough money? So, for example, if I married an orthopedic surgeon and they made more money than I did, I wouldn't have to pay maintenance or alimony. Hell, they might have to pay me maintenance alimony. That's when you see these rich women get divorced. They got to pay maintenance to these people. I mean, it's crazy. All right. But it's also dependent upon lots of other factors. Now, this is something that you need to know. Remember, we had no-fault divorce. Everybody tells us, were they cheating? Are they cheating? Are they cheating? Infidelity makes no difference in a divorce, except the one exception is if you're the one that's unfaithful and you're asking for alimony. So if your spouse is asking for alimony and they cheated, then it's relevant. If you're the man, let's say you're a traditional household, like in my situation, I'm the man. I'm making all the money. Whether I cheated or not makes no difference on alimony or maintenance. If your wife cheats on you and they want alimony or maintenance, that becomes a factor. There's all these clauses too that if you get remarried, you don't have to pay maintenance or alimony anymore. Now, this is something that's really, really important for you to know is the length of the marriage is a very big factor. I had this guy come to me. He's my friend, and I was very disappointed in him. He comes to me. He waits till his kid, guys do this. They wait till their kid turns 18, their last kid. Then he comes and wants to get divorced. You know what he's thinking? I don't have to pay child support. Last kid's 18. Married like 30 years. I'm like, dude, you're going to have to pay maintenance and child support. She was a stay-at-home mom. Are you kidding me? You're going to have to pay a fortune. Really? Well, that's not fair. I said, what are you talking about? Let me give you an example of my situation. I'll share this with you. My wife was a graphic designer. She left that to stay home because I had 3 kids. She had 3 kids, 6 kids, stay home. So we've been married, 99. We've been married, next year will be 25 years. Man, if we got divorced, I'd be looking at a chunk of maintenance and alimony because she stopped working. You see, there's a good reason for that. If you give up your life to stay home with the kids and be that housekeeper and mom and everything else, and you gave up a career, that's a big factor in that. And now the courts sometimes make alimony and maintenance short time period to allow that spouse to get back in the work force. That's a big battle all the time. Child support. Child support is all based upon how much you make, how much your spouse makes, and what is the custody arrangement of your child. Now, we're talking about custody. I'm going to talk about custody next. But it's all statutory. It's all statutory. So I left this out. Let's talk about custody, and we'll also add property distribution. So let's talk about custody. Custody can be temporary custody, permanent custody, till you work it out. I can tell you right now, the vogue thing today, this is what goes on in court systems across. They like joint custody. They have all this scientific, psychological evidence that having the man and the woman both involved in the child's life is the best. So joint custody is the big thing. You always a lot of times have joint legal custody where you make the big decisions together. And then there's something called the physical custodian who makes the day-to-day decisions. But that's a battle. What do you have to be to lose custody? I'm not telling you right. Infidelity is not enough. It's got to be really, really bad for you to lose custody. Like you're married to a crack dealer who's OD'd 3 times. You're going to get custody. It's got to be that bad. It's got to be something that bad. So trying to get sole custody is a lost cause unless your spouse is a complete train wreck. Then we have what's called visitation. Visitation, you can work it out however you want to work it out. You can work it out where it's joint, it's 50-50, it's this Wednesday, Saturday, whatever. But visitation, you got to think about what's best for the child. What I've always liked is week to week, if you have pure. And the exchange, Mondays suck anyway. You have the exchange on Monday. So somebody has the child Monday all the way through Sunday, all Monday through Monday, where you have a whole week where the child's not bouncing all over the place. That's my personal preference. Okay, but that visitation, whatever you work out. Property distribution. The general rule about property distribution is this. Here's the general rules. It's 50-50. Whatever you acquire during your marriage is going to get split 50-50. There's something called premarital property where you had it before you got married. So let's say Josh had a house. And he had this house before he got married. I'm just joking. Josh only been married once. But let's say Josh's been married 5 times. So he's got his house, and now Josh is getting married for the 5th time. He's already had the house. The wife doesn't get any of that house. He already has the house. So it's called premarital property. Guess what else you get to keep? Inheritance. So let's say Josh's dad and mom are filthy rich and leave him $1 million. Wife doesn't get that $1 million. You got to be careful about commingling. When you commingle stuff, sometimes it's unable to commingle. Okay? I mean, that's just the way it is. But you have to be cognizant of property distribution is 50-50, except if you had it before you were married. I mean, that's just that simple. If you had it before you were married, they don't get it. Now, sometimes, let's say you got a business, and the spouse starts working the business, helps increase the value. You got to go in and you got to factor what did they do to add value to that. So that's something that comes into play as well. You want to work this all out, folks. Maintenance, child support, custody, visitation, property distribution. You don't want to judge deciding these things. All right, going to court. That's where you go if you can't work it out. Temporary or permanent. By the way, sometimes you work out a temporary arrangement, but you got to go to trial for the permanent issues. Then you have what's called motions. Remember, a motion is just a request. And they're countless. Requests for temporary child support, temporary maintenance, requests for this, requests for this. Freezing the assets. That's very common. The court says nobody sells anything until we get this worked out. You know, if you're the guy that's hustling out there, that could be a real problem. Another reason to work it out. Mediation is big. They call it alternative dispute resolution, ADR. Agreements. Work out any agreement that you can make. Last but not least, I want to talk about prenuptials. This is big. Prenups are binding. What's a prenup? You decide in advance what's going to happen. They are enforceable in every state that has them. And it's very important that you know this, folks, that that protects you from some of these things. Like you got your premarital property, but that premarital property might appreciate while you're married. The spouse wants to say, hey, I helped that property appreciate. You don't want that. You don't want that. So usually a prenup has a stage thing like you don't get this 5 years, 10 years. Sometimes a prenup will go like if we're married 20 years, the prenup goes away. There can be clauses in a prenup. You get caught cheating, boom, nothing. I mean, you could put anything in a prenup that you want. 2 of my finest hours as a lawyer representing the women. By the way, I always preferred representing the women. It's easier to make a woman happy than a man happy. It's hard to make a man happy in a divorce if he's the breadwinner. 2 very wealthy men in Northern Kentucky who had rock solid prenups. I busted up both those prenups and got my clients way more than the prenup. And you know why? These 2 men were abusive to their spouses. I don't know anybody who's done this besides me. Do you know if you get the hell beat out of you by your spouse or you're struck, you can file a personal injury lawsuit against them for assault and battery? There was emergency room records that showed that this man roughed these women up. So I filed a personal injury claim in the county for these 2 different, well, these are 2 separate cases, but I did it twice. And I simply told the lawyer on the other side, listen, I don't think, considering who they're high profile men, that your husband is going to want to go through that trial. because there's going to be a trial. You can't get it dismissed. It's a fact issue. Did they hit him? And what's their damages? Both got way more than what the prenup said. I was good, folks. I'm telling you, I was good. But prenups. Here's another thing that's come up that I think you'll find interesting. It just popped in my head. I left it off. It's called alienation of affection. And all you all need to know this. You cannot sue somebody for remember, it's no fault, for breaking up your marriage, the person who cheated. You cannot sue them because that get asked a lot. Hey, my wife's cheating on me. Can I sue that guy? She's leaving me for him. The answer is no, except, drum roll, one state, North Carolina. If you go to North Carolina and you're the other man, you can get sued. You're the other woman, you can get sued. One state, North Carolina. Little deep South Bible thumping state there, huh? They can claim the throne on that one, can't they, Josh Wentz? Again, I've given you an overview. I've given you some good personal counsel here. Work it out. Work it out any way possible. Get other people involved to talk to them if they're not being rational. I'm telling you, work it out. If not, give me a call. Hook you up with the best domestic relations lawyer in your neck of the woods. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has her day. Have a great one.